The People's Alliance for Democracy, also called the National Liberation Alliance, Klum Phanthamit Ku Chat, Thai Patriots Network, and more commonly the Yellow Shirts, Suea Lueang, is a Thai political movement and pressure group. It was originally a coalition of protesters against Thaksin Shinawatra, the former Prime Minister of Thailand. Its leaders included media-mogul Sondhi, Limthongkul, and Major General Chamlong, Srimuang. The PAD was a chief player in the Thailand political crisis of 2005 to 2006, the 2008 crisis, and the Cambodian-Thai border standoff. Its membership consisted mainly of ultra-royalist middle-class and working-class Bangkok residents and anti-Thaksin Southerners, supported by some factions of the Thai army, some leaders of Democrat Party, and the members of the state enterprise labor unions. General information. The PAD was formed to lead demonstrations against the government of Thaksin Shinawatra, whom they accused of being against the monarchy. 2 days after a military junta's 2006 military coup overthrew Thaksin's interim government, the PAD voluntarily dissolved after announcing its goals had been accomplished. The PAD re-established itself after Thaksin-affiliated parties, led by Samik Sundaraj's People's Power Party, won a plurality in the 2007 general election. In May 2008, PAD again began street protests and in August seized Government House to pressure Samik's coalition government to resign. PAD supporters also seized airports in Phuket, Krabi, and Hat Yai and blocked major roads and highways. Sympathetic state enterprise labor unions assisted by stopping train services across the kingdom and threatening to shut off electricity and water services to non-PAD supporters. Armed PAD forces, Srivichai warriors, seized a government television broadcaster as well as several government ministries. Violence between PAD supporters and anti-PAD protesters left dozens injured and one PAD protester dead. Wealthy PAD supporters threatened a bank run that could destabilize the Thai financial system if the Samik government did not resign. PAD's protests escalated after the Constitutional Court found Samik guilty of violating a law which prohibits government ministers from receiving a salary from another job. PAD forces surrounded Parliament and used razor-wire barricades to prevent the legislature from meeting to hear Samik's replacement. Thaksin's brother-in-law Somchai Wongsawit formally announced his policies. Police used force to disperse the protesters, resulting in hundreds of serious injuries and the death of a young woman, all caused by the explosions of Chinese-made tear gas grenades, which the poorly trained police fired directly at the protesters. As a result, the PAD formally renounced non-violence and vowed bloody revenge. In November, the PAD blockaded Parliament prior to a crucial legislative session, used hijacked public buses to take control of the government's provisional offices at Don Mueang Airport, and seized control of Suvarnabhumi International Airport. The PAD also threatened to lay siege to the seaports of the eastern seaboard. The PAD sieges and protests ended after the Constitutional Court dissolved the PPP, banned its leaders from politics, and Army Commander Anu Phong Theochinda pressured many PPP MPs to defect to the Democrat Party and elect Tabasat Vejajiva as Premier. PAD activist Kasat Piramia was appointed foreign minister in the new government. The PAD called Armasa for the resignation of the governments of Thaksin Shinawatra, Samik Sundarajay and Somchai Wongsawit, whom the PAD accused of being proxies for Thaksin. Sondhi originally proposed Somchai as an acceptable alternative to Samik. However, when Somchai replaced Samik, the PAD refused to stop its protests, noting that Somchai is Thaksin's brother-in-law. At the height of the sieges, the PAD openly stated that the only person they would accept as premier was Abbasid. PAD leader Khamnoon Sithi Samun called Abbasid's premiership a genuine PAD victory and a Inufong-style coup d'etat, citing the claimed failure of popular democracy in Thailand. The PAD has suggested constitutional amendments that would make Parliament a largely royally appointed body. It was strongly opposed to Thaksin's populist economic policies and attempts to decentralize political power. The Asian Human Rights Commission has noted of the PAD and their agenda that, although they may not describe themselves as fascists, have fascist qualities. The PAD is largely composed of royalists, has regularly invoked King Bhumibol Adulyadej in its protests, and has claimed that its enemies are disloyal to the monarchy. It has openly called from the military and Thailand's traditional elite to take a greater role in politics. The PAD is fiercely anti-Cambodian, with PAD leader and Foreign Minister Kasut Piramu calling Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen a gangster or tramp deranged, and speculated that he was a slave of Thaksin. Origins and leadership. The People's Alliance for Democracy had its source in weekly public tapings of Sondhi Limthongkul's weekly political talk show Muyang Thai Sapda. Attendance grew after the talk show was dropped by MCOT Channel 9 and Sondhi started webcasting the show on his website. As the tone grew more controversial, the tapings gradually turned into protests against the government. The PAD was formally established on February 8, 2006, after Thaksin's family sold shares in Shinkorp to Temasek Holdings. The PAD saw the transactions as a proof of a conflict of interest. The Central Committee of the PAD consisted of media-mogul Sondhi Limthongkul, Major General Chamlong Srimuang, former Governor of Bangkok, leader of the Palang Dharma Party, spokesman of the Confederation for Democracy, activist Phiphat Thongchai, State Enterprise Labour Union leader Somsak Kosai-suk, a former spokesman of the Confederation for Democracy, university lecturer Somkiat Pongpei-boon, activist of the Assembly of the Poor. Besides the 5 leaders, 10 others form the PAD Management Committee. Pitar Wongkul, Rewadi Presa Chero Enshu, Rosana Torzi Trakul, Chaiwat Sindhu Wong, Prada Tiasuwan, Sarik I Mayangam, Su Wit Wat New, Kochuan Chaya Batwi Ripple Sopa, Awi Iwata. Other leaders include Khamnoon Siddhisaman and Campaign for Popular Democracy leader Surya Sikatasila. Several current and former employees of Sondhi played a role, including Panthapur Pongvant, Samaran Rodpech, Kumna and Siddhi Samin, Sarosha Pornudamzak, Anchali Periaruk, Utai Yong Limla Twati, and Torpong Suatam. Supporters. PAD protesters initially consisted mostly of middle to upper-class residents of Bangkok. These included prominent socialites and some little-known minor members of the Thai royal family. The PAD's support base has since expanded to include civil servants, state enterprise labor unions, the urban middle class of other cities, conservative Buddhist groups, Southerners and the so-called elite. Except for the South, PAD has mainly urban support in contrast to Thaksin, whose base has been essentially rural. Buddhist groups supporting the PAD include the Santiasok sect and their Dharma Army. General Pathompong Kesawan Suk, a close aide of Privy Council President Prem Tinsulananda, appeared in full uniform at PAD protests and urged his fellow soldiers to follow suit. The army openly ignored government orders to evict the pad from Government House, Don Mueang Airport, and Suvarnabhumi Airport. Former Army Commander Anupong Pauchinda publicly called for the government to resign several times, though he also asked the pad to leave the airports. The pad dress in yellow, the royal color, and claimed they are defending King Bhumibol Adulyadej and the monarchy against the alleged disloyalty of Thaksin. Bhumibol has remained completely neutral, though Queen Sirikit did attend the cremation of a young pad woman killed by a police grenade at a protest and described her as a good girl and a protector of the monarchy and the country. However, HRH Princess Sirindhorn, when asked at a U.S. press conference if she thought the pad was acting on behalf of the monarchy, replied, "I don't think so. They do things for themselves." In the past, many PAD members received financial support from the leader, Sondhi Limthongkul. Political proposals. The PAD state they stand for honest politics, promoting justice and the rule of law, while fighting against corruption among politicians and civil servants. They also claim to be upholding the constitutional monarchy and oppose those they view as wanting to change the monarchy's status. 2 days after the 2006 Thailand coup, the PAD voluntarily disbanded after announcing its goals had been accomplished. Representative democracy is not suitable for Thailand, commented Sondhi Limthongkul, claiming the electoral system has repeatedly elected corrupt, populist governments. To correct this, the PAD proposed what it called New Politics, and on June 2, 2009 founded the New Politics Party. Although most of its leaders supported, and in some cases helped draft the post-coup 2007 constitution, the PAD proposed constitutional amendments that would make 70% of MPs appointed based on professional groups, with elections choosing only 30%. On the 21st of September, the PAD changed its formula to 100% elections, but with 50% of parliament voted for by geographic area and the rest voted for by occupational representatives. Nationalism. The PAD has been described as ultranationalist and is strongly opposed to what it claims are infringements upon the national sovereignty of Thailand. It opposed the Samik government's decision to support the Cambodian government's unilateral application for the listing of Preah Vihear Temple as a World Heritage Site. Since land next to the temple is still in dispute, PAD charged the PPP-led cabinet with helping Thaksin Shinawatra to make large profits with Cambodia by using this agreement as an exchange. It also called for Thai investors to withdraw from Cambodia, the closure of all 40 Thai-Cambodian border checkpoints, a ban on all flights from Thailand to Phnom Penh and Siam Reap, the construction of a naval base at Koh Cut near the border, and abolishing the committee which oversees demarcation of overlapping sea areas and a unilateral declaration of a Thai marine map. Government system proposals. In contrast to Thaksin, who claimed he wanted to elevate Thailand to the developed world, Sondhi advocates an anti-materialistic, reasonable society with as little as possible consumer debt and little concern over how many cars or washing machines people own. The PAD favors limits on foreign investment, opposes privatization of state enterprises, and is generally skeptical of foreign investment. Don't impose a free trade, consumer-oriented society on Thailand, noted Sondhi in an interview. While Thaksin and Samik championed voters in rural areas and in the agricultural sector with their dual-track economic policies that combine populist policies such as universal healthcare with greater participation in the global economy. The PAD, in contrast to hardline monetarists, they propose interest rate rate hikes to reduce public debt, and cutting down spending on populist welfare projects and mega-projects. Demand for royal intervention. Amid rising political tensions, Thaksin dissolved Parliament on 24 February 2006, just 1 year after being re-elected. He called for new House elections on 2 April. In March, the PAD requested the king intervene and remove Thaksin from power. The PAD claimed that royal intervention was the only possible peaceful answer to the political crisis. The king rejected the idea in a speech on April 26, saying, "Asking for a royally appointed prime minister is undemocratic. It is, pardon me, a mess. It is irrational.